Apparently, it's gonna rain this weekend. You wanna see that? Like, I checked it like 47 times, so I was like, that can't be real, but it keeps going up. Like, I've learned that if it's under 50%, it's not gonna happen, but it's up to 56%, so my hopes are up. We'll see. I had my first soccer game with my kids on Saturday morning. I'm like, maybe it'll get rained out. That's awful. But they schedule both of my games at the same time. To get canceled, so I don't have to deal with that. But God, I'm 2 days away from the 80s. I can handle 85, 105, not so much. But on the plus side, Target does have their Halloween stuff up now, so it feels official. We're ready to go. And football starts tomorrow, and it's the weekend again after today for us. So lots of good things. But anyway, I could keep going, but I will leave it there. But we left off here last time, and I had kind of an interesting moment. I was telling you how my daughter, right, how Kaya, when she was really little, that she had no hair, right? And so it was all about what clothes we put her in, and that would dictate how people treated her. And she's 10 now, right, and has her own phone. And it was the funniest thing, because that night I went into her room and she's like, I saw this funny video. Can I show it to you? And she was watching TikTok. And I was like, sure. And it was all about like that exact same story that I had told to all of you in class. It was like somebody, it was a comedian talking about kind of misgendering people. And so I had her send it to me so I could share it with you. It's only about 40 seconds, but I thought it, or 50 seconds, but I thought it was such a kind of cool, like, it was so circular. That happens so rarely. But I had just told this story about her, and here she is at 10 finding videos about gender, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. So I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it was kind of funny, right? And so it's this guy who's a comedian, but he was talking about the exact same thing I was telling you. It's brief, but I thought it was funny. Let me pause this so it doesn't get mad at me. A cool, like, little, like, back to what we were talking about. But it was so true. We were talking about that this morning as a family, just again, like how much we tend to prescribe gender roles just right off the bat from the very beginning. And I have a close friend who just had a baby last week, right? And we were talking about this with her, and she's like, I told everyone not to send me anything pink. She had a little girl, and she's like, I don't want pink. We're going to try very hard to be like neutral. And everybody sent her pink. Like, it's still something that's very much around, even though I think gender roles have changed a lot, as we talked about last time. But what we'll talk a little bit more about today, some of these things that are up here, kind of the media and the role the media plays, teachers, textbooks, right? Our peers, our parents, a lot of kind of very social aspects to the way that we learn gender. And again, these are things that are very much present today. Yep, I went. Couldn't remember if I started it. So when we look at, like, we talked about the physical things that can construct somebody's gender, these are some of the social things. And modeling is a really big one, right? We watch other people and we kind of tend to internalize the things that they do, right? And so kids are watching their parents, for better or worse, right? Like, my kids will imitate the worst stuff that we say now, which is always awful. My partner hates traffic and will scream at people. And so my kids, when we're like in traffic, will start screaming at people. And I'm like, that didn't come from me. Like, I don't like traffic, but I don't yell. And my partner will, they'll be like, what an idiot. I'm like, oh my God, Kaya, right? Like, it's your mom talking, right? People tend to model. We do this with our parents. It's such a natural thing to do. And in the media, we see a lot of portrayals of gender, right? I'm not picking on Disney, but Disney is one of like the biggest purveyors of gender stereotypes. I love Disney. I get to go to Disneyland for the first time in 3 years next month. I'm so excited. I haven't been since before COVID, and I cannot wait. I can already taste the churros. Like, I have them planned out. Like, the day is all about food. But I love Disney, but it's definitely a huge purveyor of gender roles. And they've gotten better, like quite a bit better, actually, over time. But there's something that are still very present. And I found this really cool. I found a bunch of little clips, and I kind of put them together in a compilation that I wanted to play for you that I think gets at this idea of how commercials and the media and all these things that we're subjected to tend to have a very like sneaky role in gender. And it's not something that's always obvious. It just kind of seeps in the more that we see this stuff around us. So I want to play this little compilation for you, and it's about 20 minutes long because I kept finding things and I had to limit myself. So if you have any thoughts or reactions as we go through it, maybe jot it down so you don't forget. But what you'll see is there's some commercials. There's a little like nature, nurture, like experiment. There's something related to Halloween costumes and gender. It's kind of like a what would you do show that was on TV. So I want to play this. And again, I think it's a really kind of great compilation of clips, a lot of material right there. I don't know where you want to start, but I think there's so many kind of interesting things from the media portrayals to the commercials to the costumes. I think in my mind, I'm at the costumes first because I told you we went to the spirit store the other day, and I feel like I saw a lot of that. I don't know, any thoughts or reactions on like the gendered costume part? Any thoughts there or reactions at all? Yeah.
I don't know. Well, just the whole thing was kind of weird with the parents. And
Yeah.
Just like one of the girls started touching the kid. And
I know.
that was kind of weird.
I know. I'd be like, I know a part of a show and they
Yeah.
asked them for advice, but yeah, I would be pretty put off.
Yeah, I was surprised by it.
So I have 3 daughters, right? And we have always been like, you can wear whatever you want to wear, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, I obviously don't follow gender norms, and my partner's very feminine, but we tend to be very like liberal, like whatever you want to do with your hair, that's your body, whatever you want to wear, that's up to you, as long as you're comfortable and happy, right? And so when we go to the Halloween store, it's like, pick anything, right? Like our one limit is like, we don't want it to be like overly sexualized because they're 8 and 10. Like that's like our one thing of like my 10-year-old keeps picking things like the Playboy bunny. And I'm like, no, you are 10, barely 10. You're not wearing that. Like that, like I feel like a protective like parent. But other than that, like we're fine with whatever. And interestingly, like all 3 of them are super girly. Like I don't know what happened. Like I raised them so neutral and they're all like incredibly girly to the point where they won't even watch football with me, because that's what boys do. And I'm like, no, it is not. Where did you get that? It drives me nuts. Like, but I digress. But we were at the store last week or something like that. And, you know, they all picked, like my youngest picked Sally, like from Nightmare Before Christmas. My oldest wanted to be a dead cheerleader. And she's like, I can put blood all over my face. That's fine, whatever you want to do. And my middle one was like, I think I want to be a witch, right? And so they were kind of like neutral. But you can definitely see there is a boy section and a girl section. And of course, there's the adult section. But there's a lot of, I think we've come a long way, and like there's a lot of hybrid costumes, right? Where they've like made girl versions of like the very typical boy characters and kind of more like neutral things in the middle. But it's still a button. And I heard parents having this like, well, let's go over here, right? Like over to the right section. Yeah.
Same exact costume because the girl and boy sizes. Boy section, and I'd say, oh, it's like the same thing, like literally the same.
The exact costume.
It just said it's just in the girl section, and she'd be like, no.
Interesting. Wow.
I mean, like here and there, someone in here, but
Yeah.
most of them cared just about where they were put, even if they're the same thing.
Wow. Yeah. And I'd be so tempted to be like, here, I'll go find it in the back and grab it out of the, yeah. See, good for you. But I mean, yeah, it's that level, right? Of even the exact same thing. No, it's in the wrong section. Like they can't wear it. I don't know, any other thoughts or reactions on the costume part of it at all? Yeah.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
I feel like it's usually there's something inherently involved in like,
Right.
it's like bad behavior that's just stop right now before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, knit it right now. We gotta stop it. It's only gonna get worse. Right? And the instant assumption, right? And they're completely separate entities, but the instant assumption is that if you have a little boy who wants to wear a dress, right, he's gonna end up gay, right? Like that's the instant fear. And it might just be that he's curious about it, right? Like I have a little boy in my life that my daughter knew them, for instance, he was 6 months old. Right, his name is Brady, which I love because Brady, right? And his dad loves Brady, and we're good friends. We've been friends for 10 years now. And when they were little, like he wanted to be Ariel for Halloween. when he was 3, I want to say 3 or 4. He wanted to be Ariel, and his dad was like, son, no, like you cannot be Ariel, like that's not okay. But his son loved Ariel. I mean, like he would rock out to it in the car. He had Ariel toys. He was obsessed with Ariel. And I was like, Josh, he's just trying to figure out ways to get with Ariel by being her. Like, just let him do it. You know, like I was trying to like get him to like see it in a different way. And he wouldn't let him be Ariel. Right. So he ended up being Eric. He's like, well, I'll be Eric then, so that I can almost be with Ariel. And it was like the saddest thing, like to me, this poor little guy, it had nothing to do with his orientation. He's 4 or 3, right? He just was curious. And my partner and I owned a kids play place for years in CD. We opened a kids play place called Saplings for years, and we ran it and then sold it before COVID, thankfully, or it would have been like completely shut down. But we owned this place, and we would have this company come in once a year, and it was called Glamour Girls. And they would come in, and their service was to paint nails and do hair, right? And we would allow it to anyone if you came in, like they were going to be there that day. And we're like, I would ask everyone who came in, didn't matter what the gender or like sex of like the child was, be like, we have Glamour Girls here today. Would you be interested in having your nails painted? And every time the little boys would be like, yeah, like they look so excited. Like, I want my nails painted. And the parents just shut it down every time. They're like, why would you even ask me that? I'm like, well, because your son looks super excited about it, right? And I didn't want to assume that maybe they didn't want to do it, right? Like I'm always like, I'm not going to assume anything. And so I saw so many gender like norms play out like that. And you see it constantly with the costumes that people choose at Halloween and the way that stores are gendered in terms of toys. One of the assignments that you can do when we get to the homework assignments is you can go toy shopping and kind of look at the gendered, areas of toys and the suggestions that people make for toys for a boy versus a girl. It's still very much present, even if it's getting so much better. Yeah.
It's just like very circulated expos thing. And it was like a girl in Target, and she was like, I moved a bunch of the NASA shirts from the boys section to the girls section.
Oh, no, I haven't.
The boys section had like NASA, you want to be a scientist,
Yeah.
CEO, and the girls were like,
Yeah. And sadly, it's really ingrained, right? That idea that there are roles that boys and girls are supposed to play when in fact you can be whatever you want to be for the most part. There are still some limitations, but it's getting better. Yeah.
And so like for girls who have like stale versions of like Sonic shirts or like
Yeah.
like the stale versions of like the toy type characters.
Yeah.
And I keep finding it back in boys.
Interesting.
It's girls.
Uh-huh.
But then because it's Sonic, people keep putting it back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild, right? And again, it's gotten so much better, but it's still very much there. My kids like won't even go in the boy section of the toys, which is just so silly. I'm like, how are Legos boy? They're not boys. They're just Legos. And even the Lego aisle has boys and girls stuff. It's got like the pink section and then the like Star Wars section. I keep trying to get my daughter to go to the Star Wars section for the Harry Potter part, but she's always like, oh, I have to get these. I'm like, says who? Right. I'm like, makes me mad every time, right? But there's so much of that, right? And I love that some of you who work at these places are sharing that because it's something that you do see. And then in the beginning, it talked a lot about Disney. I wrote this up here. It's getting a little bit old at this point. I wish they would redo it. It was made in like 2002, I believe it was, but there's a great documentary called Mickey Mouse Monopoly. And it was all about how gender being portrayed in the media, specifically Disney, right, tends to have that kind of seeping in effect for children over the years. And I love it, right? Like as I'm watching that, all I want to do now is go home and watch Disney movies. I don't know if anyone else felt that way, right? But there's so many wonderful like Disney movies and they're a lot of fun, but oh, did they have so many messages in there? And they're getting better. Like I just watched the new Buzz Lightyear one, right? A couple of like weeks ago. And there was a same-sex couple in there, right? Though it was banned in multiple countries, it's been rioted. There were fights and protests that broke out. And like there had to be all these releases made to warn parents that there was a kiss in there between a same-sex couple in an animated film, right? So it was absolutely controversial, tanked its sales. and made it a largely like unsuccessful movie for what it could have been, given it's part of the like Buzz Lightyear Toy Story like universe. That somebody, yeah. Yeah. So fast. I missed it. We were watching it and I missed it. I was like, wait, rewind it. Like I want to see what all the like fuss was about. It was like that. It was the fastest like kiss between like two women who were older. And then it was over, right? And that was it. But it was banned in like an incredible number of countries because of it. And now we're in orientation again. But it again, there's all these gender assumptions that are there. And it's something that's very, very prevalent. And I can tell you watching a lot of Disney and Disney Junior and like all of these shows on TV, that it's something that is very there, along with the commercials that were in there as well. And commercials have gotten better. I pay very close attention to commercials. I watch them like very closely because I have no choice but to wait for my show, right? So I'm watching them and you can see more and more representations, but they're very gendered as well. I love that one at the end, right? My eyes are green, right? Not blue like the beer. But you see these things just very much being pushed out in the media, right? Whether it's magazines or commercials or television shows or movies, they're still very, very pervasive. And then you hear parents having these like things all the time. We picked our soccer uniforms 2 days ago. And the only choices, it was just made me so mad. Like I almost like grabbed the wrong uniform and ran out, but they had 2 tables set up and it was like dark green, dark blue, black, gray, like these beautifully cool colors. And then like salmon, coral, pink, yellow, orange, and like a baby pink. And I was like, oh, come on. There's like these beautiful colors. And my daughter was so excited. She's like, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. And so we went over to grab it, and the lady's like, no, those are for the boys. We wanted to be like, grab it, Paisley, and run. Like, let's get out of here. But even like their soccer uniforms were so gendered. We ended up with like this light salmon pink. And it's a gross color, really. And like we ended up, we're called the coral kickers. It could be worse, but we were like coral pink. But even like the uniforms that they put out like 3 days ago, we're very, very gendered. So it's just something to be aware of. This is much more of a construction than it is biological, right? These are choices that are being made very consciously, and they're changing, but they're still also very much there. I don't know, any other thoughts or comments or stories or anything else in your lives? Or yeah.
He was like years old and his mom was shopping all in costumes, and he was saying when Tom's like, the princess, like I want is like that muscle Spider-Man costume. And someone's telling him a story, and she's like, that was one of the first ones she did for his friends. Yeah. Because he wanted the most.
Interesting, right? And it might be meaningful. It might be like a deep, meaningful identity. Or it could just be like, that one looks cool, and I'd like to try it, right? And there's honestly no way of knowing at that time. But the fear for most people is that it's going to, we're going to stop it now, right? Otherwise it will progress.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like so ingrained, like even I'm trying to be like more aware of it because I work in childcare, so I'm trying to be like, you can go do that. Sure. This little boy was playing with like a baby doll. I was like, oh, okay, you can put her to bed, and it's like, he's a boy, and it was like a little baby doll dressed in pink. I was like, oh, sorry, like
right.
So I was like, it's like, so if it's wearing pink, obviously,
yeah.
Like, I think it's definitely a nurture, like at some point.
Yeah. Right. And the APA, the American Psychological Association, they updated their guidelines. They do this every few years. And as part of like their research, like citation guidelines, they recently added, instead of doing he or she, they encourage they now, which is pretty progressive in a way. So you can always say they instead of like choosing a gender. And I try and do this more and more. I'll be like, what do they like, right? Like rather than assuming he or she, because sometimes you can't tell or you don't know. And it makes me so mad. Sometimes I even do this. Like I spend my whole life trying to like not conform. And then I'll find somebody and I can't tell if they're like male or female. And I'm like, why does that bother me? Like, it shouldn't bother me. Like, stop it. Like, I'll challenge myself on it. So I've started calling people like they more often than not And one last story and then I'll move on, but we were at soccer practice yesterday in like 105-degree weather, which was miserable. And my father-in-law, who's coaching with me, he described something and then he said, okay, so your coach said whatever, and the girls all looked like, wait, who's he talking about? Like my father-in-law called me he, which didn't bother me in the slightest. My kids call me he sometimes and she other times, and I really don't care. I feel very like gender fluid in that way. But he said he, and all the kids like literally stopped and looked around like, who the hell is he talking about? Right. And then they looked at me and, I just kind of waved at him. And we had to have this whole conversation. Because again, in our house, like I can't remember if did I tell you in our house that I go by dad, right? And so one of my kids in the middle of practice was like, Dad, what do you want me to do? And like all of the kids were like, like they looked so confused. And so I had to stop practice and have this whole conversation, and none of them cared. They were just confused, right? Which is fine, that's fair. And I don't mind explaining it. And now we've moved on, right? And it's just something that I think more dialogues need to happen with. There's no problem with a little girl wanting to wear girly things. That's completely fine. Or a little boy wanting to be very masculine and wear boy things. Or play with boy toys. Nothing wrong with that. It's when we start getting those prescriptions of like, no, you can't play with that because that's for a girl or for a boy. Those messages can cause problems for kids. They can lead to bullying. And lead to identity issues. So it's just important to be having those dialogues with children and with people and to try and be as flexible as we can. And I think generationally, it gets better and better and better. My mom still, every time I see her, she's like, I miss your long hair. I'm like, I haven't had long hair since I was like 8. Like that's like 30 something years ago, Mom, like let it go. And even my mom is that way. Right. But my kids, like, they'd be like, you look weird with long hair. I'm like, I know. Right. You want to see a picture? I know. Right. So it's just something that I think is constantly improving, but it's very much something that we see in the media and from other people. All right. Oops. I just clicked on something. It's going to be mad at me. So a couple of other terms and a couple of other concepts here. Gender binary versus gender spectrum. Now, and I think I mentioned this when we first started covering this topic. We tend to think of gender as a binary. Binary means there's two options, right? Think of two, right? We tend to think of that you're masculine or feminine, right? You fit neatly into one box or the other. But gender is much more of a spectrum. And we've documented this like over and over and over again, that people can fall in different ranges of the spectrum of gender and that it might change over time. It doesn't have to be something that's static or fixed. It's something that's very dynamic and fluid and hard to define, even though we try very hard as a culture to do so. And we have an incredible number of terms for a variety of gender. And a lot of the terms that are up here are kind of old. There are so many like current terms for people who use terms to identify their gender. One term that I would like you to know is the term cisgender. If you've ever heard that before, cisgender is a term for somebody whose gender identity matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. Okay, so that's somebody who was born female and identifies as feminine, or born male and identifies as masculine. So if someone says, oh, they're cisgender, that means they identify at the same gender as their sex. Now, people who are non-binary, right, might identify in some other way. Right, like, so I am non-binary, I identify as this, right, other than my like natural born sex. A very old term that we used to use a lot is something called androgyny. Androgyny was a term that was developed by a researcher named Sandra Bem, and it combines the Greek words ander and gyne, literally meaning man, woman. So someone who's androgynous from a like traditional standpoint is someone who combines very like masculine and feminine attributes, and they kind of have a blending of the two. Not anatomy, remember that was intersexed, but this is gender, right? So combining masculine and feminine attributes. Incredible number of terms: agender, pangender, genderqueer, gender fluid. What are some other ones? Anyone have heard other gender identity terms? There are so many. I know that I'm leaving like dozens of them out. Did anyone have another one that you know of? Is that it? Yeah.
Something that's really interesting. I don't know enough about it.
Sure.
But people who have more severe mental disability like autism, sometimes they don't identify themselves with the gender at all.
Okay.
They just identify themselves as being autistic.
Yeah, interesting. And there are people who will say I'm like agender, right? Or like have no gender identity. That's something that I think has gained popularity as well. If you look this up online, again, there's so many of them, like it would take slides to list them. Yeah.
Like seeing people when you certain things that they're like they like or specifically attached to as a gender.
Okay.
Themselves, their fan self,
Sure.
something like that. I mean, it's pretty niche.
Yeah.
I imagine it's not a lot to it, but I imagine particularly the majority of people have maybe autism. I think that was but yes.
But sure, but it's still a realm, right? It's still like another identity. Again, these are kind of gaining a lot of popularity, right? And so if somebody's gender fluid or gender queer, or agendered or pangendered or any of these terms, they would be non-binary, right? So they've kind of gone beyond this binary of masculine, feminine, not being cisgendered, but identifying in a different way. And bottom line, whatever somebody wants to identify as is up to them. Right? Like if somebody wants to say, I am male or I'm female or I'm masculine or feminine, I am nothing, I'm everything, like that's ultimately their choice. But we have a lot of those different varieties. And I think it's in general, just better to approach each person as an individual, and you can ask them what they prefer if you're comfortable. This term transsexual or transgendered, I'm sure a lot of you have heard those terms before, just to kind of identify and define those a little bit. Transgendered and transsexual are slightly different things, right? And they're kind of different levels of a spectrum, if you will. Someone who identifies as transgendered is a term that we would use for somebody who doesn't traditionally conform to gender roles. So it's kind of an outdated term in a lot of ways, but it's very commonly used. If someone says they are trans, it could be either, and you might have to ask. But someone who's transgendered is traditionally someone who's male, but presents in a very like feminine way or doesn't conform to traditional male or masculine roles. For someone who's female and doesn't conform to traditional like feminine roles. Now, somebody who does that might not see themselves as transgender, right? They might just see themselves as themselves. But traditionally, that's what we mean by transgender. Someone is kind of presenting in the opposite way of their expected gender identity. Transsexual is traditionally someone who believes that their gender identity should be opposite of what they were born into, right? So oftentimes this is somebody who might consider like a surgery or hormones to change their gender or sex identity, right? So this might be someone who's born female, but believes they should have been born male. So they try and pass as a man and maybe even consider surgery or hormones to make them more masculine. So transsexual is traditionally like a degree farther than transgender. Transgendered is a little bit more like atypical presentation versus considering changing your sex or altering your body chemistry to make you more like the opposite sex. And that can be done through surgery, it can be done through hormones, and there's obviously multiple levels of that as well. Lots and lots of movies and shows featuring these, some of these better than others, right? Trans America is probably one of the most like authentic representations of somebody who identifies as transsexual or transgendered. And there's some that are just awfully sad to watch, like Boys Don't Cry. This one is an awful example, so I wanted to put it in here. Like Mrs. Doubtfire, so old, but this is somebody just passing for a specific purpose, which we wouldn't identify as trans in any way. Other ones have characters in them. Rocky Horror Picture Show, I had to put it in there for this time of year, right? The sweet transvestite from Transsexual Transylvania. That's in my head now. That's not necessarily what I needed in there, but it's there. So many of these different movies, and there's a bunch of newer ones as well. But I want to kind of end this unit with a cool clip that I saw on YouTube a couple of years ago. But I still think it's such a great example. The actress Ruby Rose identifies as gender fluid, right? So for her, she identifies in that way, right? Lots of interviews of this person, really interesting individual. Identifies as gender fluid, saying some days I like to be more male and other days I like to be more female, and I'm comfortable with either depending on what I want to be. And there was a really neat video that she made where she transitions from being hyper feminine to hyper masculine. And I want to play that for you. There's a little bit of like nudity in there, just a little bit, just to warn you. But I do think it's a really, really cool like transformation. And I don't think very many people would be willing to do something like this. Like you could think about that in your mind. Would you be willing to go all the way to the opposite end of the gender spectrum? Probably not. Some people, yes. But think about that as you watch it. And I'll play this for you from kind of like the epitome of femininity, right? To the epitome of masculinity. And I don't think very many people would be willing to do something like that. Like think about like your own gender identity and where you're comfortable and what you like to wear and how you like to present yourself. Could you go all the way to the opposite end? And what would the consequences of that be? Right? Because there would be, right, consequences. Like if I'm completely honest, and like my partner and I have had this conversation so many times, like if I grew my hair out and started wearing like feminine clothing, it would affect my partner's feelings toward me. I know it would. Like she's attracted to my gender identity as it is. It might change the way that she feels about me. Or if she decided to buzz her head and wear my clothes, right? Like it'd be funny for a minute. And then I'd be like, okay, I kind of miss your hair now, right? Like we would have like a change that would happen. And not only that, but would it change the way people view you or the way you view yourself? I had a really cool assignment that was given to me in graduate school. I took a class called Choices and Changes in Sexuality. It was a 3-unit graduate level class. And our teacher challenged us to present as the opposite gender for one day and to go through as much as we felt comfortable doing. So I lived with a group of women and I let them put makeup on me. I let them like dress me up. It was like the most uncomfortable I've ever been, I think, in my whole life. But I let them put makeup on me. I let them find me like heels, which were like I will never do again for a million reasons. And I went out for one day, like I got a wig, right? That was longer. And I went out for one day, like hyper feminine, right? And it was the most interesting experience I think I've ever had in my life. The most uncomfortable, but the most interesting. People were so different to me than I've ever experienced my whole life. Because my whole life I've been like very gender non-conforming. And I get a lot of attitude and second looks and things for that. And I'm okay with that. But I went out, people held doors open for me. People were friendly to me. Men flirted with me, which I just thought was hilarious, right? Like, and a lot of levels. But it was like the most bizarre experience ever to present in the opposite way. Now, I'm not saying to do this, but just there are consequences for the gender identities that we pick. And it was really interesting to live as the other for one day. And so for somebody to have that fluidity, I think is becoming more common, but it's still a very radical decision to make. And so I love that video for getting to see that process. Any other like thoughts or comments or stories or anything related to this before we leave the gender unit behind? Yeah.
I think one thing I don't understand that people do a lot is like when you identify yourself as whatever you want to identify yourself,
Sure.
why someone always has to have it.
Yeah.
Because in my head, it's like you do you, I'll do me.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like when someone identifies themselves and for them being happy, a lot of people get hated.
Sure.
I've never understood that because it's like if it has nothing to do with you, why does it bug you so much?
Yeah.
That's what I've always like wondered in the back of my head because a lot of people would change their whole point of view towards you
Sure.
and their whole attitude towards you, like just because of how you feel or how you identify. It's kind of
Mhm.
there's like no reason.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I saw a lot of people nodding as you said that, right? And unfortunately, that is as a reality. It's like you do you, I'll do me. And if we could only have that mentality as a culture on just so many things, right? Whether it's gender, orientation, religion, race, like whatever it might be, if we could have that mentality and truly honor it of you do you, I'll do me, and like we just don't need to worry about it, right? Because I saw a lot of you nodding. I'm sure a lot of you, whether it's your age, your gender, your orientation, your religion, your background in any way, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced something to this degree. We're focused on gender here, but it could be for anything, right? And it's sad that unfortunately it isn't that way.
Because also another thing that I've noticed is people will treat you different before they know
Sure.
what you identify as.
Mhm.
Because like for example, like me as a trans man, it's like everything will be cool And then it's like, I'll meet people that are like, so like transphobic,
Sure.
and they'll think I'm cool and stuff, and then it's like, I'll be like, later on, I'll be like, oh, like, I was trans, by the way. And then it's like their whole demeanor changes, and it's like, you were able to think I was like this cool person
Until I told you that. Mhm.
and it's like, people are so like attached to hate for no reason,
Sure.
and it's like, you shouldn't judge someone for what they identify as or anything, because it's like, if you're able to like someone for just being a person, I think that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that, right? There is an incredible amount of that. My partner teaches high school English, and the amount of like trans hate at her school is intense, right? She teaches at Royal High School. Yeah, and it's intense, right? A lot of you laughed, oh, it's that bad, huh? That intense. But it's wild, right? Like she doesn't tell her students that she's married to someone who is a woman. She doesn't. She tells them, my husband, and I go by husband, so she's technically not lying, right? But it's so funny because I had one of her students for the first time last year, like, because she's been there a couple of years. And the student came up to me after class and was all like, so do you have a partner named Mrs. Setmire at Royal High School? And I was like, uh-huh. And it's like, and you're her husband? And like, uh-huh. You know, like you can just see him putting the pieces together, like, she lied to me. I'm like, no, I am her husband. I go by dad in the house. She didn't lie. And it's so interesting. I mean, there's just so much of that. And it's really unfortunate, you know, that sometimes we have to work that hard to overcome the stereotypes that people have of us, whatever they might be, right? Or the notions that they have of us, whether it's gender or otherwise, right? And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's unfortunate, right? Because I mean, people are just people, but we do tend to have that. Any other like thoughts or stories, comments, reactions, anything else? Yeah, thank you.
This last June, me and my friends had to go to the NBA Expo versus Catmates. There was a surprising amount of people that like wanted to go to us
Okay.
and like comment us and stuff. It was really, really weird. And we had this like big muscular like Catmates club and like, hey, you want to take a picture of those? Like, okay, why not?
Okay.
So I'm like, I want to do this more. I want like more skirts and more like this.
Yeah, and it's interesting how within like a certain venue or like a certain culture, like the cultural environment of that expo is okay, right? And in fact, it's like people really got a kick out of it. Now, if you were to do that on a normal basis here,
Oh, I did that. I did that.
Yeah. okay,
Same reaction.
same reaction, no, that's great, right? I mean, yeah,
Somewhere in school, for Halloween, everyone was in costume. They dressed as the Bat made like the basic costume. And,
Yeah.
football players came up to them, shoved a Bible at them like hard and started like calling them slurs, and they pushed it back and they jumped them
yeah.
and like started beating them up.
So you have two like polar
Just
opposite
in our
experiences.
campus, not much was done.
Yeah.
The middle of it.
Mhm. So two very polar opposite experiences. And I think that's what's so wild about our culture is we have these like incredibly progressive moments, right? And then these incredibly awful, like sad moments. And, you know, there's been a lot of legislature this year that's been passed or talked about when it comes to trans rights. And what you can say in schools, what you can't say in schools. I mean, you know, my partner is not supposed to talk about anything related to orientation or gender in the classroom. Right, like it's strongly discouraged. Certain states, like if you live in Florida, for example, or other states that are near Florida, it's completely against the law. You can lose your job for talking about anything related to like trans rights or trans issues or gender identity or orientation. It's wild. There's been a lot of kind of, I would say, almost backward level stuff going on in our nation related to it. We live in a relatively progressive pocket. But there are a lot of, even here, like instances of that. Yeah.
Your partner's like not allowed to talk about it.
Strongly discouraged.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because from my understanding, state legislature
Mhm.
on like the back end of Gavin Newsom, it's like administration has been extremely progressive. I mean,
Yes,
like,
yeah.
It's like, hey, I did pandemic and I was a little shoddy, so I'm just trying to fix up my reputation. so
Sure.
You can vote me in as president.
Right, one day, for sure.
It's like,
Yeah.
cycle, but I was kind of strongly
Strongly
If
discouraged.
your partner was like outlaw or like not
Yeah.
allowed, I'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part is you can't say you can't do it,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
then people who do it find themselves.
Yeah, there's a heavy there.
Situations where their jobs are in question. Or, there are issues that come up, and we can find ways around. Them. But yeah, it's not allowed,
Yeah.
but it is discouraged. Is that what was that? No, I don't mind at all. We have time.
Teacher the other day, I get. Sorry, but, obviously there's a lot of backlash to teachers posting things that are supporting, queer youth, but, this teacher literally just had welcome in rainbow.
Sure.
And she got blasted by politicians because they're like, that's gay and that's not acceptable.
Right.
It literally just said welcome in rainbow letters. It wasn't even.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And the rainbow is just pretty, right? Like whether it has to be a gay like symbol or not, it's just a rainbow, but it could be taken as more. Yeah. Yeah.
The town I grew up in, I don't even know what happened. I think there was just like a gay teacher or something. And people spray painted perverts work here outside the elementary school. Like it was an elementary school.
It just like, yeah, it was bad.
Really, just the assumption of.
They spray painted all the school pervs work here because they like, if memory serves, they just like said that being trans, they talked about like being trans
people
is
exist.
okay.
Mhm.
And they were like, how dare you say that to our kids? Perverts work here.
Sure, yeah, that's so sad, right? And like again, it's stuff. It's there, yeah.
The whole riddle thing, and you like pretty good news to talk about people stop doing. It's like, if you're a kid, you're doing Johns and bright colors.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it doesn't even have to be like a whole ring, but. The jerseys, but forward, and they got like bright and green.
Like hurts your eyes, not even that cool, right? Pink just standing on coral, ugly pink. I was like, I think we should all wear something else. Like, I'm mad at Golden for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them, right? And again, like I think we've come along in general. Like you go back to the 50s or 60s or 70s, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go, right? And so, the whole point of this chapter is kind of looking at these influences on gender. There are a lot of them, physically and also like culturally. And then where we'll go next time. So when I see you on Monday, because we get to have another weekend now, which is exciting. When I see you on Monday, we're going to start chapter 5. So we're going to start female sexual anatomy. And we'll start talking about some of the reproductive structures and anatomy for women. And then after that, we'll go to the reproductive anatomy for men. And that'll be our first unit. So we'll stop there for today. Thank you so much for all the stories and comments. I love it. I think it was a really nice conversation and I'm appreciative of that. So thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay cool. Hope for rain on Saturday, fingers crossed. And I'll see you all on Monday.